When I got arrested at 22 years old, I was very immature, reckless.
I'm finally in a position where I'm able to make a positive impact in my community.
The sky's the limit with this program.
Welcome to Prison to Purpose podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Kane. When you think of prisons, what do you think? Darkness, your freedom's taken away, the gates closing behind you. Well, for most people, that's what we think. But for others, they look at it as an opportunity, a freeing opportunity, gates opening to success. They see the brightness. And that's exactly what happened to Justin Ennis, who's going to share his story with us today. And quite a compelling story you have. And I'm so happy you're joining us. Thank you, Justin.
Well, Michelle, thank you for having me.
Let's get into it. Most people, the first question, what do they always ask?
What was prison like?
What was prison like?
And I will say it can be all those things that you described. Dark, hopeless, and rightfully so. It is a punishment, but it can also be other things. There are opportunities now put in place to help people become contributing members of society upon their release. So, At 6 years into my incarceration, I had a perspective shift where I said, this isn't supposed to be fun, but for a punishment, there sure are opportunities here, thanks to programs like CALCTRA, colleges that had volunteered resources, the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation putting on self-help groups and things of those natures, and I started getting involved in these things that I thought could better my life, because the anger, the resentment, the feeling like life wasn't fair was still not getting me anywhere but to the bottom of the hole that I had already dug.
And you said it was that turning point. You felt like a victim, correct? When you first came into prison, was that meaning, why me? Why me?
Yeah, why me? Why am I being sentenced to life in prison? And at the time, that's how I honestly believed. And that perspective started to shift after a while, where I was like, somebody else isn't coming home because of the poor decisions that I made. And I started having a real gratitude that I was even alive. And because the way I was living, I should not have been.
Let's get into a little bit of your backstory. And that's always usually the next question, is always, how was prison and what led you to prison? So what did lead you to prison?
It started young. My mom and dad had separated. I was the only child. My mom was trying to build herself up, and I kind of took her absence personally, not understanding that she was trying to do right for us. And I looked forward to going to school, and when I showed up at school, I got made fun of for my last name, for my allergies, for having buck teeth, and
school kids are tough.
they can be.
Yeah.
And, I look back and it's laughable now, but at the time it really hurt me and played this a big role in the way I would start thinking and responding to things, because what I didn't realize at the time was I started building a subconscious belief, watching the bullies kind of get away with things, that if I didn't want to be the victim, then I would have to be the abuser. Yeah. Or the aggressor. And at home, my mom had started dating somebody who kind of reinforced this belief, because when they would get into altercations, verbally or physically, she would kind of pander to him, say it was her fault, and I was like seeking that attention from her, that validation from her, but I didn't feel like I was getting it. And so it was another thing, well, I want her attention, and she gives it to people that act this way, so if I didn't want to, another thing, like aggression and defiance was going to be what got me safety and esteem from others. And eventually,
You started acting out.
yeah, in third grade was a turning point, because I was struggling at school because of the things going on at school and at home. And my teacher had called my mom, hey, like it's kind of reaching a boiling point, like he's really not able to focus. They took me to like a counselor who was like, it was cool to talk to somebody and be heard for a minute, but then she said, oh, it's because you were, touched. And I was like, what do you mean touched? She's like here. I was like, oh, no, that never happened to me. But she was kind of relentless, about it. And so I finally chose somebody, and then I felt really ashamed, because I was like, oh, that never happened. I hope these people don't get in trouble. And so I was like, I'm not going back there. So then I go to this pediatrician. And then I didn't want to talk to a doctor, because I was like, oh, I remember what happened at the other one. And, my mom proceeds to explain, he doesn't listen and he doesn't do good and blah, blah, blah. More stuff about how I'm inadequate. And the doctor was like, oh, he has ADHD. And they put me on medication. And the medication wasn't achieving the desired results. So they put me on more medication. And before I knew it, I was having like thoughts that like really weren't mine. And it's like a weird thing to wrestle with as like a 9 and 10-year-old, because I didn't understand what was going on. But finally, I was assaulted in the bathroom one day, and I came out, and the kid was drinking from the water fountain like nothing had happened. And I smashed his face into the water fountain. He fell. I kicked him a few times, and it was like I snapped back to reality. I saw the other kids standing around.
How old were you?
Like between 9 and 10. Is in third grade. Yeah. Wow. And I ran away, but that was the time where my beliefs were reinforced, because the bully and the onlookers were either too scared or embarrassed to report me. After that, people left me alone. And so then I said, oh, it is true. If I'm aggressive and defiant, I will be safe and I will be respected. And I kind of, rode that persona into high school. In high school, that persona mixed with, being called on taking risky behavior. That was fueled by then substance abuse, and it just spiraled out of control.
And substance abuse with alcohol?
Alcohol, drugs. I would take it first and ask questions later.
Didn't even care.
I didn't care. And as a result of not caring about my life, I just didn't care about others. And, violence was a tool that I used to get, acceptance, esteem, safety. And, at the time, that's what I perceived the reward I was getting from these things. And I did get, some type of psychological or rewards for some time.
Were you one of the cool kids then? Oh, there's Justin. He's, there's the party kid. Or how would you describe yourself?
I don't know if I was the cool kid or anything like that, but what I will say is that, the second time I drank, the first time I drank, I didn't want to drink because I loathed the way alcoholics around me acted. But it came a time where my friends were drinking. They're like, hey, try this. And I was like, man, no. And they're like, yeah, you have to.
How old?
At 14. Going into 15. And so I was like, okay, the way I rationalized it was I'll just try it, and then I'll say, that's not really for me, and I won't have, because I hate alcoholics, I won't become a drunk. But man, that first taste of it, at first it burned going down, and I thought, this is not for me. Why is everybody else infatuated? But when that burn turned to that dull warmth, all of a sudden I felt like this instant, that liquid courage, that sense of acceptance. And I was like, I don't want this to end.
Yeah.
So when they were putting it all up, like, hey, we don't want our parents to know, the next time I drink, I was like, I need to drink as much as I can. And I drank until I blacked out. And I woke up back at my house covered in dirt and stickers. And I thought, man, maybe this isn't for me. But people called me afterwards and were like, oh, you were so crazy last night. And I was like, I don't know what alcohol does, but it turns me into a more likable person. And so,
Yeah.
that
You saw people accepting you for the drunk you.
for the drunk me, because nobody really cared about the sober me. I was never good at academics. I was never good at sports. But when it came to acting out or picking up a substance, people seemed to give me attaboys for it. And I was so emotionally desperate for those things that once I had a taste of it, it became any means necessary
To get your hands on it.
to drive, to be involved, to get my hands, whatever it was.
Yeah. Now we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, I want to hear more about your story. And you have quite the story to share. So stick around. We'll be right back.
If this episode moved you, hit follow and subscribe to the Prison to Purpose podcast. And remember, no matter where you started, you're always one choice away from a better future.
Welcome back. We are talking to Justin Ennis, and he has quite the story to share. Formerly incarcerated, doing amazing things out in the community. We are talking about how he got to prison. We just heard your backstory, mainly your childhood up to high school. So now we're going to take it right from high school, and then what happened?
I think school kind of gave up on trying to punish me. It was very minimal. But I turned 18 and I committed an assault with a deadly weapon that I got arrested for.
What weapon?
A baseball bat. That was my first, weapon of choice. I felt like as the violence increased, I didn't want to risk a loss. And I saw it as another tool to bolster my reputation, or like I'm willing to be that, as other people were getting bigger or more aggressive themselves, which then turned into a kidnap for ransom extortion, and then went
Okay, we're going back to this kidnap, ransom, extortion. Who was kidnapped, ransom? Can you talk about that?
So somebody was trying to extort something from me, thought that because they were a gang member, that meant that they could apply pressure to me. And so in my drug-induced alternate reality, I just saw protecting my reputation by any means necessary. And I thought, hey, I will go and I will catch this person when they're vulnerable, and I will, scare them into submitting. And I did that. And then later they got
caught.
They called the police on me, which I thought, the irony of them, calling the police on me when they were an instigator, a professed gang member, etc. And
then from there, right there you had two, right? So 2 felonies, and
yes.
then the third.
And then I committed a murder with a conspiracy. Another thing where had held the victim captive, and then she was killed in the process. And at the time, my involvement, the only thing I cared about was protecting the grow crop. She was alleging that she was going to become an informant on it because she wasn't happy with my co-conspirator, who was her boyfriend. And I thought, well, by any means necessary, I need to keep her quiet so that so that I'm not at risk. and in participating in that, she was murdered. But it was later. At the time, I was like, well, it really wasn't my fault. But then when I had the epiphany, like I talked about, like 6 years in, I started really reevaluating, and today I look back on it and say, wow.
And grieving and taking ownership.
Yeah, because now it's like, it was my fault. I could have been the one that, called the police, put a stop to it, but, at the time, all I cared about was me, and all the reasons why I could justify how the next person was less than me, which...
Were you on drugs at the time as well?
Oh, yes.
I mean,
yes.
So you weren't even in your right mind.
When they took our talk screens, law enforcement was surprised that either me or my co-defendant were even, they're like, you have enough substances in you to be dead. But that was just how out of control the substance abuse had been. So,
and this was your lifestyle?
This was the lifestyle, like every day, day in, day out, copious amounts of drugs. And so, I really lived in an alternative reality that was bolstered by the false beliefs and the drug induction.
Yeah. And this woman who was killed, have you made amends with the family? Have you?
I mean, I can't reach out to anyone directly, but, today I do feel just the deepest sorrow for it, because at the time, I absolved myself of wrongdoing because I said, oh, well, my co-defendant did it. But I mean, that the reality, like I said, I could have stopped it. There's 100 different ways I would have redone it now, but and I know that they're hurting because they had tried to take her out of that lifestyle, tried to get her into rehab, and eventually had kind of been like, hey, you're gonna live that life. Then that we've tried everything we can. And when they were there expressing and grieving, they were like, man, we should have just tried harder. And today I just think, seeing how my life has changed as a result of recovery and different opportunities provided to me, I think, she could have been out here living that great thing. She was a mom, a sister, a daughter. So thinking about being any part of something that extinguished life, it's always difficult, because everything I look forward to about the future is something that I have to live with, knowing that I've taken from other people, and it's a complicated thing to live with sometimes.
Yeah. I see the tears. I mean, I see the heartache that you're experiencing, and it's something that you have to learn how to get through every day, right?
Yeah, and it is sometimes the difficulty with coming on to talk about the successes that prison has has provided for me, but
there's always that past. But you got to get through that past to be a successful and a productive person in the community.
Yes, and that has been my driving force, is that, I don't want these people's lives to be in vain, and that I see that it's grace. Like, nothing that I did merited this. It was only that people like yourself, like the CALCTRA's Department of Correction and Rehabilitation, have taken the difficult road to say, hey, we have to try to help people to become rehabilitated members of society so they can get back. Because while never able to be directly able to change what I did, it is the driving force for me to be involved with things like this, reaching back into my community, going into the prison system to say, hey, how can I be a part of saving a life in the future?
Yeah.
Thank you for this moment of your time. I will keep it brief. My name is Justin Ennis, and as the CHP opened with today, there are people that need to be in prison, and I was one of those people. I deserved every bit of that 16 years to life that I was sentenced to. I didn't want to be broken, but I just didn't know how to fix it at the time. And these programs that are funded are really grace in action. These programs gave me the opportunity that I needed most when I deserved it the least. PIA was a true practice field for me. Yes, I was in a food and beverage packaging industry, not related seemingly to what I do today, but it actually is, because it was there that I learned to just show up to work. The ability to learn that I had it within me to do these things, but spreadsheets, inventory, deadlines, and leadership without authority, those are all things that have carried me in my profession today.
We're going to take a short break. I want to hear now, okay, you're going to prison. Let's talk about prison, and then we're going to talk about hope. And we're going to carry this out. We have a couple more segments, and I just cannot wait to hear more about your story. Justin, thank you for opening up. We really appreciate it. Take a quick break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We're talking with Justin Ennis, and we just got up to where he is talking about how he got to prison. So what happened? The next, you said, so we just heard 3 horrible crimes, right? And for the most part, you didn't have to serve prison time, correct?
No prison
No
time.
prison time. And then what was it? What brought you to prison?
I'm back on the streets, further reinforcing my belief that my actions don't have consequences, and I'm out living that party lifestyle, drinking, driving, have girls out on a boat, and I hit, wasn't paying attention and hit another boat that had stopped in traffic, and it was a gentleman out there trying to have a special birthday party for like his 12-year-old niece, and they had stopped. They had asked for help. I had turned around to help them, but as things continued to escalate, it went from, I think he's harmed to I think he's going to die, and that's when I went into self-preservation mode, and I was like, I need to get myself out of here. Because I wasn't thinking about those kids and, their most desperate time of need. I wasn't thinking about anything but me. And
It was me, I at that time.
me, I remember sitting in the back of the police car while his pregnant wife is banging on the window, in hysterics, thinking to myself, why is everybody so upset? It was just an accident. Like, that's where my mind frame was at the time. And I look back on it, even like looking back on it, was like, that's just how sick and depraved I was in those times, and how deluded and far from reality. But during the trial, because, I wasn't going to take a kind of deal, or I made them all relive it again, and all I thought about was me trying to get away with it. Maybe surely there was going to be something that would get me off again. It had been the pattern of my life. And when I heard some of the closing statements about what a good guy he was, how much he had looked forward to being a father, why they were out there, at the time, it planted a seed that would be my eventual part of change, because I felt like everybody else, it was easy for me to make an excuse of why I harmed them. They were other people doing the same things that I was, and here was this guy that...
You're pointing fingers at everybody else other than you, right?
Yep, and here was this guy that was completely innocent, doing the right thing. Everybody had good things to say about him, and that would be my moment of change. When I got sentenced for it, I thought, how dare they take my life for this, sending me life in prison. I can't believe this. And I made my rounds, did Wasco D-Yard reception, Solano, Donovan, Corcoran.
All the
Saturday.
prisons. A lot of the prisons in California.
I did my rounds, and 6 years into it, I had got this letter my daughter had wrote to Santa, and it said, Dear Santa, I want some board games. I want to Polaroid camera, a Hatchimal, some school supplies, and a trip to see my dad. And then she said, P.S. Santa, will you help him get out of prison one day? And I had just gotten a write-up to keep me on a higher security yard because that's what you did to stay, you know, good or whatever, you know, or your prison reputation. And I started thinking about, you know, Mr. Rodriguez, and everybody said like he was just wanting to do anything to be a dad. And I thought, man, if he were in my shoes, he'd be doing everything he could to like give back. And
Yes.
I'm not doing anything. And that ended up what started the journey and I started realizing like I wasn't a victim here. I was lucky. The way I was living, I should have been dead. And other people don't have this opportunity of life, which their loved ones would give anything for. And I needed to change. Whether it got me out of prison or not, I needed to change.
And it was your daughter's letter to Santa that changed, or when was it? I mean, were you in your cell and just like
it just gave me this just instantaneous perspective shift where all of a sudden I saw everything going on in my life in a completely different light. And all of a sudden the people that I had harmed were like my driving force to change. And I started realizing like I always heard the complaint in prison, like this isn't fun and they're mean to us here and can't do nothing. And I started realizing like, yeah, that's what I deserve. That's what this should be. And I started all of a sudden seeing like, but hold on. They have groups for us here. They have education for us here. There's things I could do to be a better person. I started getting involved in those things. And that's how I became involved with CALCTRA.
so? It was about 6 years.
6 years
of just no fun, like just trying to push your way to the top in the prison population, right? Just trying to
being a part of that.
The politics,
the
right?
politics,
The prison
that-
politics, the yard politics, and finally you just pushed away.
Yeah. And I got involved in all these different things. And that was 6 years into what was supposed to be a 16 to life sentence. You know, people told me, well, you're never going to get out because the history that I just explained to you. And then the other things I had committed while I was incarcerated and got, disciplinary infractions for, everything from weapons to cell phones. And, but I was like, I got to change for me, I got to change for the people that I hurt. And that started changing my life, where my whole life I'd been miserable and I always thought I was going to be happy if I got this next thing. All of a sudden I started feeling like a contentment. I got a relationship with God. People started coming back into my life unsolicited, things beyond what I could have, orchestrated started happening for me.
Did that strong faith help you?
Yeah, just because I felt like there was a purpose, now moving forward, and I saw that prison wasn't a limiter. It was just where I was at. It was only a limiter if I chose it to be a limiter. Why couldn't I live, the best life I could just in prison,
Yeah. And what did you start doing? So how did you start changing? Like you said, sign up for self-help groups, right?
I signed up for self-help groups. That was the thing that was most readily available where I was at. Okay. I got involved in those, and it started giving me some different like cognitive behavioral things. I had been involved in some AA and stuff. I had went to somebody and I was like, I don't think it's working. And he told me, it's because you're not working it. And I was like, how'd you know? Like I'm talking about I'm working it. And he's like, no, if you actually work it, your life will change. And I was like, oh, what a novel idea. So he challenged me.
Yeah.
He's like, really do it, really work it, see what happens. And
Apply
I did.
yourself, right?
Applied it, and it started working for me. And then I started thinking, well, if what this book did and told me, and I did it, and my life got better, what are these other things that I can take from wisdom, try, and do better? And then they started offering access to education. So I started taking school, and I remember I learned to read basically in prison. And
You learned to read in prison.
yeah, for the most part. And I just told myself, like, just one homework assignment at a time. I took one class my first semester, but I graduated, I ended up getting a degree while I was there.
Good.
I ended up being able to take like a full load while working. And
Let's talk about working. You started working, and you started working for CALCTRA.
I did.
So let's talk about that.
So I was at Corcoran, and
Where Charles Manson was.
yeah, and I had a counselor that's like, I'm going to sign you up for CALCTRA. And I was like, and do what? It's like, you're going to go work in a factory and you're going to package lunches. And I was like, not for me, man. I'm going to find something else to do. And he's like, I think you need this. And I had to go back and I had to consider it.
Yeah.
I had to say, you know what?
And you had to apply, right?
To this,
Yes,
this person probably knows what's better for me. And this is probably, my ego getting in the way of what should be a good thing. And so I was like, you know what, I'm going to go try it, and we're going to see what goes from there. And it was great because I had really great mentors there.
And you had to show up to work, right?
Yeah.
You had to, every day you had.
So it was great practice, showing up for work every day, how to balance a 5-day work week with school, with my recovery stuff, with family and phone calls. And
what did it teach you? I mean, you climbed the ranks.
yeah, so I didn't know anything about anything like that. I have no job skills because I hadn't had a job prior to incarceration, and throughout my incarceration, I had the opportunity to be in like One Voc, and then I was like a clerk a couple times, and so I started off packaging stuff on the machine. But I always said, like, what else can I learn here? So then I started taking on more and more responsibilities. Doug Asher, he would show me like how to work on the machines and stuff because I had nothing, no skill in that, but show me how to do like the Urplex inventory. Started messing more with spreadsheets, which I had a base knowledge in. And pretty soon...
Collecting the data, handling audits.
Yes, and then we started fabricating like our own kind of production spreadsheets and things that also got picked up by Sacramento, and those were affirming that, hey, as a part of this thing that, people said it was a really good work and this was helpful for business, and I started thinking about...
and you became a supervisor.
I did. I became a lead man, and, I don't have any authority instilled in me, but I have 60 incarcerated individuals that work under me, so to speak, and we have to figure out how we're going to get this job done. And
you were leading 60 people.
Yeah, and so the team building, interpersonal communication, getting something that big to work on time, getting people to knowing how to build teams, who to put where. Because the social aspect of that is applicable across any business field. And that ended up being the most tremendous help moving forward, because I'm a project manager for a real estate developer now, but it's the same
I wanted to go,
concepts.
and now you are, bum. You're out of prison, obviously.
Yeah.
And doing great work. So project manager for a commercial real estate?
Yeah, a real estate developer. So we do commercial and residential. Right now I have 2 projects that broke ground last week, one being 4 1,300 square foot residential units and another one that's an 11,000 square foot, $3.5 million new construction commercial building.
And how did those skills get to where you're at now? How did that help you get the job?
I exemplified that if you gave me an opportunity, I would learn and I would improve. With my CALCTRA 101 supervisor reports, that's actually what I submitted at my interview and said, because they said, well, you don't really know construction. And I was like, yeah, but I really haven't known any of the jobs that I've ever had while I was incarcerated. But these are what my supervisor said about me that I learned, that you didn't really have to tell me twice, and that I would go on to think critically and build upon the knowledge that they passed down to me.
Well, and what I love about you, Justin, now is you give back. You give back to the community. Again, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back because we're going to hear everything that Justin is doing, some good stuff out in the community, as well as encouraging others who may have walked in similar shoes. So take a break. We'll be right back.
If today's conversation inspired you, make sure to follow and subscribe to the Prison to Purpose podcast and keep pushing forward. Your breakthrough is closer than you think.
Welcome back, Prison to Purpose, and we are continuing our conversation with Justin Ennis. And let's talk about that process of becoming free, of what did that look like, getting out of prison. So you were suitable for parole, obviously. You're out. What did that look like?
Yeah, I was originally sentenced to 16 years to life because of my involvement with recovery programs, CALCTRA, the commendations that I received there. I was afforded an early opportunity to go to a board of parole hearings. It was my initial hearing, and I was found suitable at 12 years. So I was released back into the community, and I got a lot of encouragement from my supervisors. It's like, what do I do out there? And they said, just do the same thing you did in here, and you're going to do great out there. And
yeah, you didn't have a job before you came into prison. So what did that look like when you got out?
So I was pretty naive. I kind of followed the resources and what they had said to do through CALCTRA and the institutional videos and things. And I just went through some job postings that said entry-level position. I had submitted the resume that I had created, and I started going to a few interviews the first week I was out. And at the job that I'm currently at, I went in there and they were like, well, you kind of seem a little more qualified than this entry-level position, but we'd like to hear from you. And I explained to them that I had never had like a real job outside of an institution, but this is what I had done inside of an institution. And I had a stack of my supervisor reports from CALCTRA. And I said, hey,
all your certifications, here they are. Yes.
Yeah, and I said, I didn't know food and beverage packaging or inventory or any of the things that were involved in this before I took that job on, and I learned it. I excelled at it. So I think if I'm given that opportunity here, and with these kind of these certification and things as a validation of my abilities, and that was enough to get me a foot in the door. But more importantly, the skills that I had actually acquired, both hard and soft, did allow me to live up to the potential of what they were expecting and continue to progress at a very quick rate to where I am today.
You climbed the ladder.
Yeah.
So, and now where are you?
Now I'm a project manager.
Wow.
I have 3 simultaneous projects going on right now.
And who would have thought that, from your backstory, look at you now. So let's talk a little bit about that and how you're giving back. You give back at graduations. We hear you at graduations. We invite you back inside prisons because your story is so impactful. You inspire so many of our graduates.
And they said, come in for an interview. And I took in my supervisor reports, and I was like, hey, these are what people that I worked for in there said about me, about my skills, about my ability to learn. So if I could just have an opportunity, and that did. I went from making $20 an hour to making over six figures.
Just like CALCTRA was really instrumental in giving me, an opportunity, there's also people outside that want to give people an opportunity. And when I was in the darker places, hearing a story of hope, I think is impactful, and being driven by the harm that I've caused others, knowing that I can't directly repair that, is why I do continue to go into institutions to promote CALCTRA, because everything that it has done for me, and I know, prison is a negative place where a lot of your peers will tell you, oh, this will never work for you, and that's why I want to set the record straight. If you do the work, it will work for you. I had to often wrestle with that. Will this food, beverage, packaging job ever really translate into
a career?
And the answer is yes, a resounding yes. It's not that I package food, but you can take those underlying principles that you learn there to cross over into any field. Management is management is management.
Yes.
And
dealing with people is dealing with people is dealing with people,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, and if you can deal with people and if you can learn things, it's you're going to excel out there. If you can pay attention and you can treat people well and do it without being do it in a way that is integral, you will succeed out there. And I'm now that.
You're paying it forward is what you're doing.
Yeah, and now that I've had the rewards of that, I love to go in and to tell people, like, this is the reality of it. This can be something for you. Take advantage of it. And, more, I think that'll continue, that more people will be involved in that and more people start becoming part of the solution instead of part of the problem. Because, I
love that.
I think the world needs some help.
Yes, yes. We need more solution-based people, right?
Yeah.
And not the troublemakers, right? So let's talk about also pathway to kinship. You where is that at, and did you start that?
I didn't start that. It was started by Mark Vahanian, whom I met while incarcerated, before his pathway to kinship endeavor. But he was actually a corporate trainer that had used these 7 key principles to do corporate training, and I thought this would be great, and we kind of collaborated, and he expanded that, and now we take it into 10 different prisons. I've authored several different curriculums, but and go in and facilitate it, because CALCTRA handles the professional, the career kind of oriented, and this is the self to. What do I do with, my money? How do I develop myself outside of my profession? Things like that. It's the complementary puzzle piece of it. And yeah, I get to go into several different prisons up and down the state and tell them, that these two kind of things in conjunction will
help your life.
Yeah, and far more than you would ever believe. Because if 10 years ago you would have said, hey, this is what these things are going to do to your life, it'd have been really hard pressed to believe it. So that's why I want to go and tell people, like, it is real. Yeah. It's real.
Yeah. And how long have you been out now?
3 years.
3 years. And
yeah.
Look at what you're doing now. Any words?
Gratitude. Like I kind of opened up with in the beginning, that people like yourself, people in the department that are pushing for this not so popular measures to give people another opportunity, because I understand that people are rightfully upset that someone got hurt. And to say that it's not fair, and that's what makes me a more grateful recipient of this gift that I've been afforded. And I want to continue to be a good steward of it, and continue to promote how it can change lives, it can change people. The more people that are changed, the less harm is going to ultimately happen, and try to reverse that ripple effect that I've caused throughout my life.
And I've seen you changing lives just by speaking at those graduations and talking to people and having those one-on-one conversations with the men that are incarcerated, that they look at you and go, okay, he's been there, I'm here, how can I get there? And you are quite the inspiration. And I just can't thank you enough for you opening up and sharing your story with us, Justin. So I'm hoping maybe even in a year we can kind of do this again, and I can see where you're at and, see where you're at in your life. So keep doing the good work you're doing.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And you likewise for everything that you do for, incarcerated individuals, and I think citizenship as a whole.
We just want to leave you with this. Hope doesn't stop beyond the gates.
Thank you for listening to the Prison to Purpose podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to hit follow, subscribe, and stay connected with us for more real stories, real growth, and real transformation. Share this episode with someone who needs a little strength today. We'll see you next time.